This is English Voiceover in Asia, Episode 1. I'm your host, Yui Haruhara, but you may know me better as Yui Senpai on YouTube. Wait, that sounds a little familiar. Last episode was Episode 1. Well, I meant to say Episode 0 last episode since it was the introduction. So, this time is for real. Episode 1. Our guest for today is Christian Lee. Christian has a history both on camera and behind the mic in Singapore. These days he doesn't do a lot of acting, but he's been seeing a lot of success with a really cool app. We'll get to that later. I got in touch with Christian through kind of a chain. It started when I was looking for leads on the Singaporean English dub of an anime called Doraemon. I took a shot in the dark on someone that may have been involved in that dub, and while the person I contacted wasn't involved, he did tell me who voiced Doraemon, a Singaporean celebrity named Hosan Leong. From there, I talked to Hosan, and he delved into details on the dub, including the names of both voice directors. One of the directors was Christian Lee. I knew the name from my research into Singaporean English dubs of the worldwide phenomenon Yu-Gi-Oh! And a little anime you might have heard of once or twice called One Piece. These dubs are not as well known as their North American counterparts, but both were the first versions of the shows to be released in English. I reached out to Christian over email to talk Doraemon, and he went into extensive detail on the project. Unfortunately though, no footage is available of this dub, much as he'd like to find it. A year or so later, I reached out and requested him to be the first guest on this podcast. He gladly said yes. In this episode, we'll hear from Christian about his history in acting, voice acting, and what he's up to nowadays. Also, you'll hear some exclusive details about the Singaporean dubs of Doraemon, One Piece, and Detective Conan. Just as a heads up, I may dub over myself in a few sections as my mic encountered some glitches during recording this interview. So if you suddenly hear the audio quality change, that's why. Without further ado, here's my interview with Christian Lee. Alright, hello everyone. So, I have here with me a very special guest for the first episode of my podcast. Go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hi everyone, I'm Christian Lee, and I guess I'm known to Yui as one of the voiceover actors as well as directors for the Odex Voiceover Unlimited recordings of Doraemon and One Piece. That was the one I worked on, as well as Yu-Gi-Oh!, which I voiced.
So what got you into acting?
Good question. What got me into acting? I just want to say thank you for even having an interest to hear about my life. So I will try
absolutely.
not to be long-winded. And it all started with that I was extremely shy in class, and the kid across the street, Malcolm McKenzie, was in chorus and started to do musical theater, and he just told me to stop my art. You know, we had this, I guess, extracurricular thing in junior high. And he said, why don't you quit art and come and sing in chorus? And when I did, it unlocked everything for me. I became a little more gregarious. I became from introverted to extroverted, and I learned sort of the dynamic and power that performing on stage, as nerve-wracking as it is, it opened up for me personally. So that was my foray, was playing what was it? Little Abner, but I was Earthquake Magoon, who's the antagonist to him, Malcolm, playing Little Abner and on stage singing and doing musical theater. I never even in a million years thought I would be doing that. And when I did, it just unlocked. And so then launched, high school madrigals, a cappella. Who would have ever thought I'd be singing 16th, 17th century English a cappella music? But it was amazing, and did all the musical theaters and plays.
Yeah.
And that's what started, I guess. So that's what started me. Oh yeah. Well, I'll continue on where I made the choice to become an actor was after high school and doing all that play and everything. And then I went into university. I got involved and started a band. But
wow.
So I played bass. I started with this band. You can look it up. It's called Lawsuit. I think our YouTube channel is Lawsuit the Band or Lawsuit Music. I'm going to date myself, but we, would do gigs and open up for bands like No Doubt, Cake, and Green Day.
Wow.
But we were a 10-member band with kungas and congas and full horn section. I played the bass, and it was just this amazing thing that I just started with 4 friends, and then it grew with all our old high school friends. And college
Wow.
friends, and then we wanted to get a record label. But so meanwhile, I was performing on stage doing the band thing. It was every Thursday, Friday, Saturday night. But I always had this interest in acting, but I could never do any plays or anything because the band sort of had to come first.
Oh,
So when the
yeah.
band broke up after a 9-year stint, I had to make a choice. I'll just get to the acting part. And I said either LA or New York. At the time, I was living in San Francisco.
Oh, wow.
And I just said, who are all the actors I respected? And I started to research their background. Where did they study? Everything, from Robert De Niro down the line, Meryl Streep. And it's like, that's New York. It's not LA, it's New York. I have to go to New
Yeah.
York. And so I packed it up and went to New York. And then after studying with Bill Esper, it was fantastic. And just, doing the whole paying the dues and, getting agents, doing that whole thing in New York, then it was time to meet some other goals. I was, getting some work. I was living as an actor in New York, but the other goal was to travel. I always loved traveling and I always wanted to come to Asia. So I thought I could package two in one. And I heard of this place called Singapore, right? And where they had a second English channel that just started. So it was like, English channel? They're doing dramas? You mean I could actually play the lead role and not just sort of your stereotypical Asian role, which was the doctor, gang member, delivery boy, scientist. So I said, okay, I'll go for a week to Singapore and I'll try and hustle, make connections, and get some work. And if it doesn't pan out, I'll go to Bali, have a really nice time, then go back to New York and go back to the life I have there. So what ended up as a 1 week venture out, try and get work, met Jose Leon, showed me around, introduced me to an agent, everything opened up, and it turned into a 9-month nonstop working. I got to play Romeo
Wow.
and Romeo and Juliet in an uncut version at one of the old theaters here, which is the Victoria Theater. It's
Wow.
been redone, but it kept all its beauty and splendor. I mean, it just opened up it's like, okay, I get it. Okay, there's this second English language, but it was a thriving theater community, and it was just sort of the right place at the right time, or
Wow.
I was the right fit, I guess I should say.
Yeah.
That's then when I met Chuck Powers, and he's a theater guy, and he just said, "Yeah, I love theater." And it's like, and I was like, and I'm about to embark on this project where there's this company called Odex that has secured all the rights to do the redubs and sell these redubs around the region, and they're going to be doing focused on Southeast Asia for the English dubs because they can bring down the cost.
Right.
Obviously, you might be familiar with SAG and
Mhm.
unions, so which is great because it protects the voiceover artists. It's just that for these markets that are opening up, they can't afford those rates.
Yeah.
The market the business model doesn't work. So he would take non-union voiceover talents and find them, oddly enough, find them all in Singapore, whether they were Americans or whether they're Singaporeans.
Yeah.
And I have to say, I have met so many Singaporeans that can do every voice dialect under the sun. You want British, you want neutral Singaporean, you want, Hong Kong, you want American, they'll deliver.
Wow.
And that's what opened the world to sort of voiceovers. I had done commercial voiceovers just as an actor, not really in New York. Well, one missing piece was in San Francisco. I was a talent agent, and which is really funny. So I worked the kids department as well as I'd help out with the voiceover department, and I'd see these voiceover artists, the best personalities ever. They'd come dressed, it's California, San Francisco, like flip flops, t-shirts, and they're older gentlemen, middle age, and they're like, "Hey, how are you?" And they have this amazing ability to use their voice to portray a message, a story, a character. And they have just this amazing life. I always was jealous. I want to be a voiceover actor. I want to be a voiceover actor. That's sort of how that connected from me being an agent to then saying, you know what? I don't want to be an agent. I want to be in front of the camera. I want to be I want to be the performer, the thing that I was in junior high and high school, the thing that unlocked me to come out of my shell. I want to do that. Total chance, I'll just have to say it's a crazy thing to say, okay, I really want to go and make it. I'm going to pack everything and just go to New York with a little nest egg that I made. And as you probably know, in your day job, you sort of build that nest egg to be able to afford the things you want to do. In this
Yes.
case, I built this nest egg, and then I said, okay, and at the time it was the whole silicon boom
Mm.
right before the bust, right
Yeah.
in the early 2000s. So I mean, I was just working at a headhunting firm, placing contractors, engineers, trying to build the first mobile device that could surf the internet. That's how exciting Silicon Valley
Yeah.
was at the time. And I remember a lot of the stars saying, "Hey, Christian, you're really good at sales. You want to be part of our startup?" And I was like, "Thanks so much. I really enjoyed, working part time for your company, but I'm gonna go to New York and be an actor." Like, who would have thought I could be a billionaire? If I could start who knows? Woulda, shoulda, coulda. Anyhow, back to Singapore. Um, it was just my interest in voiceovers, being able to have an opportunity to voice characters, and the fact that they had all the rights to do remakes. Well, a lot of work and effort went into them.
Yeah.
Uh, well, why don't I just pick it up there, because I have to kind of give credit where credit is due. And that is, everything starts with a great story and a great
Yes.
script. So with these series, the fact that they're crafted, I mean, the animation's so great,
Yes.
and they're so touching and so
Mhm.
cute, and just great to be a part of it. Uh, but it really starts there. So these have stood the test of time because
Yes.
story is and character building is just really tight. So that made it a joy, because
Mhm.
that part, a joy and a curse. Now, the joy was unlocking these stories. The curse was, how do you get them translated? So
Yes.
it's one thing. Odex, gets the IP. So you have all. So how it's done, as in voiceovers, you have the scripts, and they're all in
Yeah.
Japanese. And then you have the visuals, and then you have the voiceover dubs in Japanese with no, what they call M&E, music and effects. And then you have a
Okay.
music effect track, and sometimes that's just one strip track. And I sort of do it like this because everything in an editing suite is like timeline, right?
Yeah.
Linear time. So the idea and the process is that you take the scripts and you have them translated. And obviously, as you might know, you probably, I'll just go on the record, I don't know Japanese.
Okay.
So that might challenge even more difficult. But for people that do know Japanese, I have heard, and I think hopefully you might know, that grammar is pretty much flipped over.
Yes, it
So
is.
you have to get a native Japanese speaker to translate. But in Singapore, I think we had a few translators, and what they were was they were tai-tais. So tai-tais are usually wives that have traveled with their very successful business husbands, and they get sort of an expat life in Singapore, where they
Okay.
find themselves, having tea and going to the country club gets old. So they want to do something a little more meaningful, something that they may have a skill set on. And obviously they have some translation skills. So they're willing to do it. And at the time, I think Chuck Powers and Voiceovers Unlimited secured all these sort of Japanese translators, and everything's a limited, squeezed down budget, as we previously mentioned, of why. So he had to crank these out. So it starts with just getting scripts translated. But then, these are, tai-tais, so they might drop off. This is too much work. I want to
Yeah.
go back to the country club.
Oh my
And
gosh.
so you
Yeah.
have these half-baked translations. And so we had 2 passes of what's called cleanup. The first pass is just get everything grammatically correct. So it meant the first whack through on the translations, just literal translations, makes no sense. And the
Yeah.
cleanup is, you almost have to watch what is unfolding in the story, and then you have to make a creative decision. It's like, and it could
Oh
go
wow.
various ways. As you know, you could make it go completely adult oriented or G-rated. It's your choice.
Yeah.
Then go through, translate the story to something the way people would speak grammatically, have some colloquialisms, as we talked about with the Singapore dubs. And then the third pass is, it's got to fit the sync. And that was the most challenging, because at times
Oh gosh.
I'd go in the booth. You have limited time with these voice actors. They're all on package rate. I mean, they worked hard. Once again, I want to
Yeah.
give credit where credit's due. I would have not wanted to be a voiceover actor in the Singaporean Doraemon dub. Maybe it's because I say that because I was the director and I had to get a job done.
Yeah.
The takes had to sometimes do several, and it wasn't the actor's fault. It was just the translated materials. Like, let's say you have 5 syllables to work in with the lips
my
moving,
gosh.
and the sentence is 10 syllables or something just not fitting. You have to on the fly kind of edit the script so it's not, as well as the actors are on there. And I think I mentioned this to you in an email, are on their feet watching the lip sync and actually changing words on the fly. So if you can imagine, I'll try and paint the scenario. I've got my mic right here, but the mic's fairly close. You're in a tight, enclosed, airtight thing. You have a small TV screen doing playback for the visuals.
Yeah.
You have the bastardized script of like corrections marked out,
Oh my gosh.
everything in English, but you're watching the story unfold as you're voicing one character. It is literally like juggling 5 balls at one time and keep them in the air. And then you have a director going, okay, that was okay. Let's just do that line again. Replay back. You got good enough to where you couldn't sync everything right spot on. You might be a few milliseconds behind the actual lip sync, but you knew enough you started to get better about rhythms of when you see a voice, lips in the character doing like that, you kind of start to get a sense whether something fits and you can press on. So at the time I had an engineer. No, sorry. I was the engineer. God, I remember now. Literally directing,
Wow.
watching, and then I had a script supervisor who was making sure we got everything. Yeah, we got that line. We did this take. Take 3 is the good one. And you just were trying to be as efficient as you could to get things in the can, like get things recorded and move on. After that was locked, then came the process of editing. Cristal, she and a few other engineers had to hop on and take a look at all this out of sync material, look at the script guide of which takes were the good ones, and then here's the Singaporean slang. Which ones were NG that you ignore? NG meaning no good.
Yeah, no good.
Yeah. And then they would slot and they would edit and finagle, get the sync. Then it would preview. When it flowed well, any other pickups that need to be done, bring the actors back in. Usually it was their next session. Do the pickups first from the previous episodes and then forge on to the new episodes. Then they would lock it and they start to mix all the levels for the music effects and then another preview. A lot of work, right? And then to top it off, here's the curse. I don't know why, but we're running on IMAX, and we got them in bulk, and they were brand new, and we had legit copies of Pro Tools, everything, and they just kept crashing.
Oh no!
They kept crashing, and a lot of times, sometimes hours of work could be lost. And
I know the feeling.
And
it hurts just to hear this.
I know, and it was tough back then, right? I don't think we had SSD drives. Everything rendering took overnight. You did episode render, like it just was painful. Like we're so lucky to be living in this age to see how far technology's come in terms of media production. Okay, that was a long spell, but that's what not in a nutshell. In a long-winded way was the process.
I was going to ask that later down the line, but that is all the info I wanted to know about, kind of what was the process like. No, that's really interesting, just knowing what I know about how it works in America. Yes, you still have to mess with lip flaps, but there's like dedicated teams to doing so much. Like, I couldn't imagine doing it with the tiny team you have with... like you said, you had very talented people behind it that could work with it, but it sounds like
it's definitely shoestring budget. So in a way, ignorance was a little bit of bliss. We had a lot of, including myself, completely new to the process,
right?
And so you just sort of figured out what you need to get done with the tools you had, and that was it.
Yeah.
And well, the work ethic in Asia is something else too. It's like there's no 9 to 5. Go home 5 o'clock, play with the kids at the park. No, forget about that. It's
Oh my gosh.
you work till you get it done. There were a
Yeah.
lot. We're in an industrial park. We don't have windows.
Oh my
We
gosh.
just went in and got stuff done. Needless to say, after that job was done and One Piece was in the can, Conan the Detective was done. Um, that was my next chapter. Was like I just I couldn't do this anymore, but I also wanted to do something else, which was I wanted to move to China, to Beijing.
Really?
I wanted to study Mandarin, and I wanted to see what China was. I love that whole adventure,
Yeah.
and I didn't even know if I'd come back to Singapore. It was the sort of the chapter was closed, and the voiceovers and all that that work, the acting work, saved up the nest egg, and it was on to the next little adventure, which was China.
Yeah.
But let's stick with what we're all here for, which is to talk a little bit more about these great.
Might circle back to that later, but
Yeah.
um, has anyone else ever interviewed you about your work in anime?
No, you are the first, and I'm really honored actually that you connected with me. And I just hope I was gracious when you first connected with me. I think you sent a few emails, but I was just like I could tell your genuine sincerity and like wanting to find out more, and that
Yeah.
you were huge fans. So it's like, no, this is great to sort of go back. Who can I connect you with?
Yeah.
It is a small community here in Singapore, but I think as people have moved on, unless you're in those circles, like I've really sort of moved out of those circles. But
Yeah.
at any point in time, I could reconnect, like I did with Crystal, who's
Yeah.
in Zurich.
Yeah. And, Gerald
Sure,
Gerald reached out to you because whenever
Yes.
you. Yeah.
And Gerald recently reached out to me, but I think I gave you his name. And
Yep.
and there
I
was
reached
Jose
out.
Young and yeah. Anyhow, but yeah, more questions regarding this sort of ragtag team we had of very talented people.
And so what do you do in your free time?
Currently, what do I do in my free time, or back then, what do I do in my free time?
I guess both.
Okay. Well, back then I was, I was an actor that then made this choice to save the nest egg, to do voiceovers and direct them. And so I'd say my hobbies were guitar. I always had a guitar, and so I was always playing a lot of bossa nova music or trying to play bossa nova music. And it's only just because in college I had a language requirement. In high school, you have a language requirement. I took Spanish. Then in college, I had another language requirement as a history
Really?
major, and I didn't want to take Spanish again.
Yeah.
But so I oddly enough chose Portuguese. I don't know what I was thinking, but what Portuguese taught me was, well, it opened the world of not only Portugal but of Brazil, and then Brazilian music and bossa novas, and I just studied abroad in Rio de Janeiro, or Rio de Janeiro, as they would say. And it has always been sort of a part of me. I love to this day listening to Brazilian bossa nova music. So I love, I wish I could play more. So currently now I wish I could play more jazz piano. So what I do in my free time, it's not really my free time. It's a family man. So I have 2 small kids who, just try and spend as much time with them. And I have now pivoted from voiceovers, doing the sit in China, which opened up the world of film producing and really truly behind the camera. And then working on films there, back to Singapore, getting married, and then meeting my fellow co-creative partner, Jason Chan, who we were both sort of similar stories. He grew up in Australia.
Really?
I grew up in America, and we both found ourselves being actors in Singapore. He had a lucky break, though. He got to be a superhero, so he was the Green Power Ranger. But we always knew that it's pretty cool. Like I mean, it's he just did a conference or another a meetup or something, and like the fan base for Power Rangers is huge. And
yes,
so
it is.
he's getting to tap into that now, but his journey of wanting to be more than just an actor and be just a piece in the works, but be more of the creative force. We knew that in order to create better work for ourselves as actors, we had to do the hard part, which is to do the create, to write, to learn everything about production, whether it was shooting, directing, editing.
Yeah.
And luckily that it coincided with the sort of that burst and change in technology where DSLR cameras came about, where everybody could afford, I think it was Apple that just launched, like, for $300 you could have, FCPX, and it was just that convergence. We happened to be right time, right place.
Wow.
A couple of actors that wanted to just sort of hang up the shoes because, like, the roles and the projects were not that good anymore. Even one that I did, my last one, which was in China, and you can research this, but I'll go on record. It was probably the one that made me say, I don't really want to be an actor anymore. It was a Hollywood break. It was project called Marco Polo, not the Netflix Marco Polo. It was a telemovie with Ian Somerhalder playing Marco Polo, and he's famous from, I think, that vampire show, as well as he was one of the brother sister on Lost. Anyhow,
Okay. Wow.
seemed like a great opportunity. Went there, and it was like, okay, this is finally, I'm a part of the main cast. I'm playing this character called Kogatai, which is bad guy, Mongolian, right?
Yeah.
And then what kind of killed it for me was that they had to hire an A-lister to play Kublai Khan. And so they chose Brian Dennehy for Kublai Khan. And it was just kind of like, for obvious reasons, a little bit of a mismatch. I mean, and then, at one point he wanted to do yellow face, and that sort of got, there was pushback on that and fought, and, B.D. Wong, who played Pedro, which was one of the main characters in that two-part telemovie, took a stance. And so that didn't happen. But what we ended up getting was, Kublai Khan that was, not phoning it in, but, it just didn't work. It was like a guy with a bit of a New Jersey accent playing Kublai Khan, and just that. And it's like, it was kind of like, okay, well, I can't stand for this. I'm just going to take a break from the acting from now on. And if I really want to make change, so back on track, I have to start learning to create. So with Jason and we started a production company called Banana Man Films, and then we started to do TV series, web series, and then a feature film. And so that sort of merges into the free time. Like, it's like I'm now doing exactly what I'd love to do. And not every free minute is doing that. I'm just sort of doing Family Guy. He's doing Family Guy. And then we're getting to do what we love to do, which is learn how to create stories and, get to act in them, as well as get to write them, direct them, produce them, and edit them.
And this is something we didn't really go over. How long were you with Voiceovers Unlimited?
That's a good question. I think it was a year, or maybe just short of a year, but they had all the rights to the series, the anime series. And so he came in with the ability to say, look, if you give me a budget, we'll do a joint venture. You invest in this equipment, I'll hire the talents. I've got the talent. And he was very talented. Chuck Bowers he could do voices. He had the young hero voice really well, and he was just really sharp at directing and knowing things would work. But once again, I still can't believe we pulled it off like what we did. But he was the thing that drove this thing forward and got those things made. It wasn't easy, and he cracked the whip sometimes. Yeah. And I think it was, he's obviously from America, but he was in the U.S. military, so he ran a pretty tight ship.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Cracked the whip, and we got it done. I remember the day I told him, I said, you know what, this is good. I'm gonna, give my resignation. And of course, the thing you do is you go up in person and you hand your letter over, and a member's like, so what's up? And he was talking to me, and I have these other goals, I go to China and everything. It's like, this is just, at that point, I'd had it up there. I was like, it's too little sleep, too much work. It's just not worth it anymore. I just remember he says, I was in the U.S. military, and we don't know the meaning of quit. You don't quit.
Oh my gosh.
I was just like, yeah, but I'm not in the U.S. military, and I'm quitting.
Yeah.
Or whatever it was. I didn't say that. Inside, I wanted to say that. I just retreated back to that small, shy boy in the back of the class that never did musical theater.
Yeah. Yeah, I had no idea he was in the military. Wow.
I don't know if he really was, but that's what he said. I think he might have. He was pretty. He was pretty hardcore. Like he could work hard.
Huh.
He had stamina. No, it's good. I mean that was another thing. Like being an actor, it can be a very selfish profession. Like you really sort of go after it. But I knew in my heart, after sort of like traversing the world and living that actor's wanderlust life kind of thing, that I always wanted to be a family guy, and that I always wanted to do something more than just be an actor. So it was nice to sort of get all that out of my system, to really get behind the camera, to how you see how the magic happens. That's why I really want to emphasize things start with the writing. Like the creative process starts there, and without that, nobody would have anything to make or to talk about or nothing. So
right.
And that's what is nice about, I think, Japan and Korea is the writers are put up on a pedestal, maybe in America as well. Singapore could do a little bit more of that, where they really value the writers in the writing process, because you don't have anything without those.
How many projects did you work on with Voiceovers Unlimited? And
yeah, if memory serves. So the ones I actually directed, I think I had mentioned to you, that was Doraemon and Detective Conan. And One Piece, I only directed a few episodes, not much. Chuck, that was his project.
Yeah, it was Chuck and Brian.
But whenever he had something, he needed someone to step in just to do a few bits. I was sort of that person.
Right.
And then that thing ran itself. He had so much powerful talent with Brian and Jamie Meldrum.
Yeah.
Doing so many voices. But those guys could figure it out. And you just, even with Joe Murray.
Yeah,
Joe's literally like press record. Let me do that again. Okay, cool. And he'd come up with brilliance, and he'd do it. So very little directing. Actually, that is the main advice for any directors out there casting. Just cast great actors, great talent, and you don't really have to do anything. You just let them go. And so voiceovers was Yu-Gi-Oh! And then the part in One Piece.
Yeah, Shanks.
Yeah, Shanks. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I think that was it. I want to say one more, but can't remember what it was.
You were Mokuba in Yu-Gi-Oh! The little brother. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's right. That's really funny. You should say, because I have two older brothers, but my eldest brother, I always say, big brother, big brother. Because I had to say big brother. That line was so much.
Yeah, it's kind of what he does.
Yeah. So when I Skyped my brother, I was like, big brother.
So did you? I did have a question about that. Did you pitch up that voice in post?
I think it was pitched up a bit if I listened to it, because I'll be really honest with you. As a voiceover artist, I'm pretty good with. He's a PC. I'm a Mac. I'm just the sort of tech guy, just laid back voice. In terms of character voices, I'm not very good. As a matter of fact, I'm so jealous of people that are. But it's amazing just to be a director, to hear the talent unfold. But where I wish I could do voices, I'm just not that guy. So yeah, I think it was pitched up, embarrassingly so, and I think you could actually hear that it was pitched up. I mean, I'd love to say, like, if we had the talent pool and we had the budgets, we had the market like America, I think that's the place to play, because there's just so much talent.
There's so much, especially now.
Yeah.
And
everybody's got a home studio, right? Everybody's working.
They had to this past year.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, it was fascinating how they did it.
But it was nice to play a part, but I think, yeah, I wouldn't survive in this day and age. It's just way too much talent. And you could just hire them anywhere in the world. Can you imagine if we we'll play a little game. We had to do the dubs, but you could hire a non-union
Yeah.
anywhere in the world, and they just lay down the dubs. You send them the MP4 of the video.
Yeah.
They've like laid it down. Okay, this is in the can, and you're like, oh, this is so awesome, and you're just assembling the edits.
Yeah.
That's the world we live in.
Yeah, it's absolutely incredible. So, a lot of the general questions are out of the way. This has been super, super insightful. I've absolutely adored this.
Oh, cool.
So my fan base is in love with Doraemon. That's where I took off as a creator. Was I did 2 videos about Doraemon. I did kind of the English dub history, and Odex was part of that. But at the time, and as of now, there is no real footage other than the trailer I sent you that was randomly found in a library of all things. So we're gonna talk a little bit about Doraemon. So when you said that was what, 2002?
Yeah, it was around 2002. So the history, as you know, remember I had mentioned that Singapore had these 2 English channels. So at the time, one was by SPH, was Singapore Press Holdings. So they are known for publications, the Straits Times, the main newspaper here at that time, and they made a foray into broadcasting, television broadcasting. So they had competing stations. Finally, that market big enough where they had an English channel. So part of the regulation here is if you're going to be a broadcaster, you have to have a certain amount of channels in the different languages that we represent, because we're kind of harmonious here and we want to represent everybody that lives in Singapore. So it was Channel I was the English station for the brand new station, SPH. And then the Media Corp, which is the long-standing broadcaster, had at the time something called Channel 5, and then Kids Central, as you pointed out. So I think what happened, that trailer, what happened was Channel I was the first to broadcast. So this was created, the Doraemon series with the Singapore English dubs were created for Channel I for their sort of kids segment in the mornings. Then there was an acquisition, and MediaCorp then took over all of the media works, including Channel I. And then I think they took that content and they started probably broadcasting on their Kids Central. Kids Central doesn't even exist anymore. Then it merged, and then it rebranded to something called Octo, and then Octo then rebranded into something else, and now broadcasting has sort of just dissolved.
Yeah,
just online streaming. So I think it's MediaCorp now has something called MeWatch, which is just a streaming platform. They do still broadcast, but very few people actually. I think most people are kind of just watching stuff on the internet now.
Yeah. Okay, so one of the interesting things I've discovered in research when I was reading a book that's actually from a professor at Ohio State University, she said Fujiko Productions was involved with every Doraemon dub that's out there. How involved was the Japanese side with this dub?
With this particular dub, as far as I know, not much. Okay. I don't know if they were signing off on the scripts. All I know is the process I told you. And at the time, I'd get the scripts. We'd have to make some changes. And then they would go through another kind of previewing and before they were signed off and then delivered. So I'm not sure what kind of deal they had. I do know that this was only going out sort of to broadcast in Singapore. I don't think it had... I don't think they had plans for it to have legs anywhere outside of Singapore. Right. So maybe something was negotiated to that point. So in that respect, I think it's such an original thing that was done, like to be part of something that's like, oh, okay, hold on, they're doing it in sort of really hyper localized, specific for a small market, right? Yeah. But they did it with local artists that are known here. And it was specific to Singaporean kids, and that's probably who was going to watch it. I don't know how it got buried and where they are. It would be really great, and I'll rack my brain on. There is one other person. Oh, trying to remember her last name. I was going to say surname, last name, Taz.
Oh, I know
Taz was sort of
Taz
like
Gill.
Taz Gill. She is Singaporean, and she's probably still in Singapore. And at the time, Taz was the business partner, Chuck Power. So they did a lot. She was amazing at working with all the translators, sort of getting them up. But the work was monumental. But that was the person I worked a lot with to just get the scripts, work with the scripts. So Taz Gill, wow. I just want to compliment you on your ability to research it and the fact that you've got so much information. Like, you weren't even there, you weren't even working with these people, but you know them and know of them so much more than me. So
thank you.
But the other hot lead would be Odex, and I don't know.
I already reached out. They seem to be confused about what I asked for.
It's a family business. I remember it was
Really?
two brothers and a sister, and they popped by the studio. Obviously, they were the investment arm. They had to see what their investment dollars were going into. They just wanted to know that it was being delivered, so then they could sell it. And Chuck Powers and Taz with Voiceovers Unlimited were the execution team. So they'd go, "Yep, this is what we did. We rented this space. We got this equipment. We have this staff." And they'd pop in, and I knew it was they would be. Huh. I'll see. I don't know if I could reach out to them that I'm here, but I would almost think that they would have masters as well, because they're the ones who paid for all the work to be done.
Right. Let's talk a little bit about One Piece. So it sounds like you weren't too hands-on with that, but I did tell you by email about it because you were Shanks. You were the first person to voice Shanks.
Oh, yeah. That's great. No, that was. I mean, I didn't get to voice much, but I got to voice Shanks. So
he still doesn't appear much. It's unfortunate because I love him.
Yeah.
One Piece is still going. Like,
a great series, I mean, it's an adventure, right?
It is an absolute adventure.
So many characters. I can't imagine in America, like every single character is probably every voice actor is doing maybe one, whereas the Singaporean version, like the guys are doing like 10, 20 voices.
It's funny because now with the way the world is now, like there's remote studio out in LA, they will have people from LA because the current dub is in Texas. That's where they're based out of. They'll pull people from the LA talent pool and have them voice characters. Yeah. It's still a ton of work because it's One Piece. It's almost 1,000 episodes.
Just so many pirates.
Yeah, it's what got me back into anime.
And there's such character voices, like
because from what I could tell,
Brian Zimmerman did one character.
Zoro.
I remember, like sometimes we just try and come up with the voices right then and there.
Yeah,
you have to notate what was that voice like, and I'm trying to remember the pirate, but Brian Zimmerman, all these voice actors can do all the different voices.
Yeah.
He just says, I'm going to do Clint. I'm going to do
That's Zoro. That's Three Sword style, Zoro.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
And it was so cool. It was such a good Clint Eastwood accent. I'm like, yeah, that's it. That just matches perfect.
Yeah. How involved was I don't know. You did. You said you directed a few episodes. How heavy a hand did Toei have in that series with One Piece?
Yep. Now something is coming back. I do. Okay, so at the time when these would roll out, they always tried to do the merchandise play. So I know Odex, I think, had on a certain series, like let's say Yu-Gi-Oh, they'd roll out the yo-yos in every Cheers store, which is like the equivalent of 7-Eleven. So kids would have watched the show, and then they were like, "Oh, cool, the yo-yo, all right, yeah." And they would. So I'm pretty sure Toei did a lot of merchandise whenever something rolled out. I can't really remember because I had left for China when they actually aired here. But that, if I was to take an educated guess, I would say they had a part to play in all the merchandise rollout.
Okay. Just know that One Piece is still going strong, and you've contributed to the legacy of that.
That's really great to know.
One Piece is the best-selling manga in the world right now, of all time. Yeah.
No, I mean, once again, bringing it back to the creation, right?
Yeah.
It's just crazy, right? it's like to have the imagination to think
Yeah.
like, they reinvented pirates, like, and so cool. And like, those are
Yeah.
really cool pirates.
Yeah, that's yeah, it's absolutely wild how long it's been going, but I love it. I keep up with it every week.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah. Okay, Detective Conan. So how involved were you with Detective Conan?
Pretty involved. So
Really?
yeah. So I don't know if I finished all the series. I might have been a pass off, but I did do a lot of Joe. Like, you can confirm this with Joe Murray. We did a lot of late nights together because he was also in I think finance, and that was his
Really?
day job. And then he would, after he'd finish up work, he'd get off, come into the studio,
Oh my gosh.
and then we'd spend some long hours.
Oh my gosh. So you
I
directed.
could have to. At times we get testy. I was just trying to make sure that we got the one that really worked. So sorry, you. Let me, 1 second.
Yeah, no rush.
Um, but yeah, I did a lot of that, but there was a few people I think working on that. But I do remember recording a lot of Detective Conan. I don't know if it was like that one assigned.
I saw in the credits you were the assistant director.
Yeah, probably Chuck took on major.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe. But I did. But at that point, our hands were so full that we had to do what we needed to do. And then of course Chuck had power to assign anybody a credit.
Yeah, so with Detective Conan, I'm a fan of Detective Conan. Not as big as fan as other people I know, but
Yeah.
it's so heavily built on wordplay, and I know that's one of the challenges of putting this in English. How did you work with that, or did you work with that? Were you involved with that aspect of it?
Wow. Okay. I'm gonna really rack my brain
Yeah,
here.
it's okay if you don't remember examples. It's like,
I don't really remember any examples, but I do know that I was really, really thankful to have Joe Murray as Detective Conan, and the fact that we had liberties to make it work,
yeah,
and the fact that it was such a great, adorable, series where the mysteries get solved every episode.
yeah,
That he had a lot of input, and it was just like, I'm telling you, at those hours it was just like Joe, myself, and then the script supervisor writing down which takes were good. And it was just, yeah, how about this, how about that, okay, I know what to do, boom, he'd do it. And so a lot of credit I will
okay.
I give to Joe Murray, just
Yeah,
being a very smart guy,
'cause
and
I would,
being very talented. Yeah, helping my memory again. I do remember. Yeah, some of the puns were really good. Well, once again, Joe's been around the block, Joe Murray,
yeah,
and he could pick up a lot. But I like the fact that we kept the Japanese names. I mean, we might
yes,
have butchered a lot of them, but it was quite fun.
yeah,
Again, I'm just once again talented for all these names that are so foreign, just whip them out. And as when you're reading a script, but it's never reading, you're talking, and
yeah,
it's like you just pull it out, and it's as if these little guys, like, it's Detective Conan talking to these people,
yeah.
but yet it's a 50-year-old something man, doing the job. So, like, it's
Yeah.
just easy.
Now I saw that you just kind of round the bend here.
Sure.
You mentioned in our email exchange you're in a tech startup called Cinewave.
Yeah.
Yeah. I watched the trailer. It was really cool. I love the idea.
Oh yeah. Feel free to share any little bits of that if you want. That you can download that trailer and
Yeah.
write any of that in.
So
So I'll tell you the concept really easy. It's a very easy concept, which is you watch a movie on a big screen, or any content, like even an anime series, and then you listen to the audio on your own cell phone with your own headphones.
Yeah.
And I'm going to demonstrate that now. This is just a phone, and right now we're going through a test with it's called Rooftop Cinema Club in Santa Monica. So oddly enough, this is a Hollywood film that's being played right now. People are sitting in their drive-ins, and they have about 200 seats in front watching this movie. And anybody that has headphones, they're just listening to the audio. So it's so why I have this on is because just making sure that nothing happens.
Right.
Obviously, Jason is also monitoring. So what that allows is it allows scalable audio. So what has not ever been done is to be able to use cell phones to sync audio to the pictures. And okay, how's this for full circle? Being a nitpick person, having directed anime, you want the sync.
Yep.
When the sync's not there, it throws you out. I mean, so to be able to get the technology to the point where you can listen to the audio on your mobile phone, and it doesn't matter where you're standing. You could be on a cliffside at a beautiful beach and watch a big screen
Mm-hmm.
and have that beautiful breeze, and everything's in sync, and you have the immersive audio,
Mm-hmm.
and maybe you have your Bluetooth audio headset and you're having a picnic with your drinks and sandwiches, and you're immersed in the world because audio is so important. So I guess connecting all my dots, knowing that audio is so important, it was great to be able to build sort of a tech startup and the technology. And first ever, world first. So it's patent pending. And we're right now in testing pilot stage with, rooftop cinema. They started in the UK and London. They have them everywhere. They have them in not only LA, they've got Houston, Florida, all over the US.
Yeah.
And what we'd love to see come about is sort of preserve the big screen magic. I think it's been really, really tough for cinemas
Yes.
because of COVID
Mm-hmm.
and with streaming and piracy, and you go down the line of what's sort of killing the big screen magic. This is one way of utilizing technology to salvage the big screen magic. Because ultimately, I want a screen that's bigger than the chair I'm sitting in. And then I want any kind of chair I want.
Yeah.
But with immersive, beautiful audio. And so that's the technology in a nutshell.
Okay. Wow. Because you were mentioning you were getting out of acting, and you were talking about when you were starting acting, you were going to go into tech.
Yes.
So this is kind of circling back to that.
I finally get to be in my unicorn tech startup.
Because when you said that, I'm like, connect the dots.
Yeah, you're right. So if there's one piece of advice, having lived this, is to just keep doing what you love to do. Eventually, everything does start to make sense and come full circle for you.
Yeah.
Keep falling apart.
Yeah. So what else is on the horizon for Christian Lee?
Well, I think a Cinewave to sort of go out there and create some really unique experiences. I'd love to see Cinewave being used for some of the anime movies and anime series. And the reason why is because it has the power to bring people together.
Yes.
And especially with the Japanese anime and some of the amazing dubs that are being done there.
Yes.
The platform actually can handle multiple languages. So it's how we get the sync to work is because you're actually downloading the audio file. It's encrypted and everything. It's safe. But what that means is you can download any language that you have the dubs for. So let's say if I'm at huge sort of iconic sort of outdoor open air cinema in some cosmopolitan city, and people from all over the world are there, and they go to, let's say, a Doraemon movie. And they have the German dub, the Japanese dub, the English dub. You simply download that dub, and you're all watching, laughing, and enjoying the movie at the same time, but in the language. And maybe you're working on different languages. You can toggle between languages. So that would be my envision. And I think what's great about anime and what's great about like even Studio Ghibli movies, the dubs are amazing. English dubs and the Japanese, and like it is amazing to listen to it in all the different languages. Even the Disney movies have been dubbed with wonderful talent. And it's a really great way to showcase like, wow, it's like they really nailed the voices for all these different from all these different countries for one particular character. I think that's amazing to be able to have a platform that can really showcase that aside from
I think that's all the main questions I have. Did you have anything else that you want to discuss or bring up, or something I missed?
No, just want to thank you again.
Absolutely.
really, it's an honor because you have put so much time, dedication, and work. And I kind of want to see the quest get fulfilled. So let us try and hunt down, even if it's a little promo.
Yeah.
Let's try and fulfill the quest, and even if it's a little promo or trailer,
Yeah.
or reassembling the cast just a little bit, let's go for it.
It's
Cool. Well, what a fun and awesome sort of hobby you have, or lifestyle. I mean, just how fun is it? Because it's like endless amounts of things to
I get so
discover.
many requests. I get so many requests for things to do. I'm like, I wish I could do them all, but I also have a 9 to 5 I do.
And congratulations on your podcast, because
Thank you.
getting that up is not easy. So
Yeah.
you
Just
it sounds
getting
good. Like you're doing great. Keep it up.
Thank you.
Because I think people love it, and your edits are tight. Like they're just like, oh, right to the information, right to the gold. I get it. Okay.
Yeah.
Boom.
This interview was in August of 2021. Since then, Cinewave has seen great success and continues to be used throughout Singaporean venues. The application is approved to sync audio with films from the likes of Disney and Sony. Best of all, Cinewave received a US patent in December of 2022. You can check out Cinewave for yourself by going to cinewave.com. That's Charlie India November Echo Whiskey Alpha Victor.com. Thanks for listening. If you like what you heard, please be sure to rate this podcast 5 stars and subscribe via your favorite podcast app to know first when an episode drops. If you want to hear more info about English dubs like Doraemon, as we discussed in this episode, check out my YouTube channel, Yui Senpai TV. Here's my guest next time on English Voiceover in Asia.
My name is Eric Kelso, and I'm in Tokyo. I've been here about 35 years. I'm a voice actor and narrator, originally from California.
If you're an actor that has worked in Asia and would like to be a guest on the podcast, please send an email to yuiharuhara@gmail.com. If you're a listener and would like to know when I have upcoming guests, please follow my Twitter @yuiharuhara, or stay tuned to my YouTube community tab. From there, you'll be able to ask guests questions that may be featured in their interview. Until next time, take care.